energy sources. We're also seeing that our the threat of the world, the geopolitical environment that we're all trying to navigate and make best sense of, the world of technical development, the artificial intelligence, and all that that's presenting seems to be activating concern, threat, and fear for people. So there's kind of energy expenditure because of the sort of sense of threat that's going on there. We're also noticing that there's people coming into the working world that have had less experience of human connection because so much is done for us digitally. The ability to sort of understand our human experience, our human emotions, our human interactions is feeling depleted, and that's certainly compromising the energy levels. Our spiritual energy is being compromised in terms of we're in a sort of world that's far more individualistic than collective, and that's having an effect on people's energy, as well as just psychological effort of navigating all the stimulation and demands that are on us. So that's a little story of kind of the energetic effect and environment that we're in, that we're noticing how it's sitting within people. And when your energy is compromised, it depletes how much human effort we can apply to our life and our work, and therefore the results that we can achieve. So it has absolute impact and importance that we feel we want to share. So that's kind of the introduction to the topic. In terms of the team, Lisa and I on the call today. Lisa is going to take the content you through the content today, and I will look to keep an eye on the chat room and support Lisa. But she's absolutely got all this wonderful content to share with you. And as I said, we've also, as Colette knows, we've got our colleague Dave, who was booked out quite a lot today. So we said we gifted him the time back so that he could focus on some other demands that he had today. So we are the team of Uplift Consulting, and I'm wanting to sort of share our work with you. I would love for those that are on the call that now know where the chat room is to share with us a little bit more about where you come from, so your background, so just so that other people on the call can get to know you. But I'd love to hear in the chat room also anything that you would like to get from today's call. So if there's any particular piece of learning, etc., and you're able to sort of type that into the chat room, we'll do our best to integrate that into what we're doing. So some of the housekeeping pieces for today, we're looking to sort of take this call up until about 12:15, so that we can honour your lunch times and you can go back into that. If you do have any questions, I think we're a small enough group to drop the mic and bring it in, Lisa, if that's okay with you.
Please, yeah. It's always nice when there's less people that we can have conversations. So if you feel you want to talk, make comments, ask questions, then please just pop your hand up and we'll stop and we'll have a conversation.
We can do it. We can certainly do that. But if you feel more comfortable putting in the chat room, that's fine too. As you might have seen, we are looking to record this because not just for reasons that we can sort of reflect on what we've covered and discussed, and we can share it with you if you want that as a reminder of the content that we've covered. So it's really a service to us and you to have the recording open, if that's all right with everyone. And I can see, with the exception of Miles and the CNN thing, we've got everybody on camera, which is lovely too, 'cause it's so much nicer to see your faces too. So I don't know if there are any early questions in terms of, thank you, Kay. We can sort of see in your introduction there that you're from Wolfson Planning. I know you're sort of also, you know, and have worked a little bit with Lisa. So lovely to see you there. So shall we kick off? Lisa, are you ready to get into the flow of content?
I'm ready to go. I've already clicked record, so it should be recording. And if you would like a copy of the recording after this, we can absolutely send that out to you. What we'll probably do is pop it up on our YouTube channel, so it will be hidden as a private view, but we can give you access to it, so not a problem at all. Let me just double check everybody can still see the slides and they're clear on your screen. So just give me a nod or a thumbs up so that I know. That would be lovely. I'm going to take my cardigan off now because my heater has just kicked in under my desk and now I'm quite hot. So thank you, Kate, for that really helpful introduction to human energy. I just wanted to talk about energy because I think it's a really simple way for us to understand what's going on. Most of the time, if we meet somebody, we will say, "How are you?" And they will say, "I'm tired," or "I'm great," or "I'm, whatever." And we'll use this sort of language of energy in a way to describe what's going on for us right now. And I think we intuitively understand that concept of energy. And as Kate has already said, any energy affects us personally in a physical way, in an emotional way, in our mental energy, and also in our spiritual energy. And all of those will have an impact on how we show up in life. And obviously, in the workplace, we spend a lot of our time in the workplace. So energy will show up in the workplace. And I think we as individuals, we as humans, intuitively know when things are not quite right. We can understand the culture, the feel of the culture. And I just wanted to bring to mind The Apprentice. So I don't know how many of you watch The Apprentice, but just think about the energy in that room at the end where he's pointing his finger saying, "You're fired." What does that energy feel like? So it's just a way of recognizing how energy feels. So I wanted to start with a bit of fun, really, and to look at, you can see all these light bulbs on your screen, and they're, different brightnesses, different types of light bulbs. And I'm going to ask you a question that, and maybe because there's not that many of us in the room, you can unmute, or if you'd rather just use the chat box. I want you to think about where you are right now. And if you were to describe yourself as a light bulb, where would you describe yourself? So let me give you a few examples of, are you a spotlight right now, just focusing, really focusing on that one thing, and everything else has just disappeared and it's just that focus? Maybe you're like a dynamo, one of those wind up torches where you can wind it up and it's a really, really bright light. But as that dynamo sort of slows down, the energy sort of drains. Are you in that place where, yeah, energized in the morning, but by lunchtime it's sort of dipping down? Are you that bright LED light where you're blinding everybody with your fantastic energy? Or maybe you're the old-fashioned light bulb with the filament that's just flickering and it's lovely warm energy and it feels safe. They're just some examples. You can pick one of those if you like, or do you have another view of where is your energy right now, personally? I'll give you a couple of seconds. If you want to unmute and speak, please do. Kate, where are you?
Yeah, I'll certainly kick off, and you probably know a sort of a theme of where my answer is. I'm definitely in the old-fashioned light bulb camp, with a sort of filament that's suddenly a little bit frayed and a little bit flickering, but there's something very reassuringly warm about it. And I'll sort of add to that. We were doing some studies, weren't we, about the Lisa and I were doing about the impact of a warm fire, and incandescent old-fashioned light bulbs do it. They basically soothe our nervous system, and they actually do have a cellular effect within us in terms of what they do. So we are sort of suffering a little bit from this world of LED lights versus incandescent infrared lights. So I'm championing some of that old tech that does something very important for ourselves, even though they're deemed maybe a little bit old-fashioned.
Mm.
So,
I can't see the chat box right now, Kate, so maybe you could share some of the comments if there have been some comments in there where
no
people
comment,
are.
no comments yet. So shall we see if people want to jump on? I think Kay was just about to take her mic off. So Kay, we're through.
Yay.
Shall I go next?
Yeah.
So I think maybe I'm the dimmer switch. So this morning I went out for a run, so it turned up. Then I came and responded to some emails, so it went a bit down. I've had a really lovely conversation with one of my colleagues this morning about what we're going to do for the rest of the month. So it's gone back up again, and I was really excited about this. And I've had a protein bar, so energy levels are good. But I know as it gets a bit closer to lunch, the dimmer will be down again. Yeah, and I pretty much, my energy levels are always like this on like, have I been outside and got some fresh air? Have I been at my desk too long? Have I had something to eat?
Yeah.
Have I had a bit of human connection? So yeah, I think I'm probably more a dimmer switch.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you with getting you know, having that energy from going outside in nature. And I know, you know, when I do coaching, I quite often suggest to people, let's go and do a walk and talk. Let's get outside and do coaching, because I think the energy that's generated from that can really be helpful. Thank you so much. I think that's a really lovely explanation of energy. Andy.
Hello. Yeah, I was also going to say dimmer switch, actually.
That's okay. You can choose that too.
I think but I feel much more like I'm sort of in control of the switch now that I've retired fairly recently, and that's just a lovely difference. So being able to have more control over the pace of your day. And being able to invest that energy, turn that energy up and down as you move through the day, it's just really, for me, it's been a kind of lovely experience, very, very empowering. So the ability to be less reactive, I think, is sort of very important to how you're able to channel your energy most effectively.
Yeah. Lovely.
Yeah, you bring to mind for me, Andy, the energy benefit of autonomy. That's what you're sort of capturing, and I know autonomy gets talked a lot in the work settings in its impact, but this just elevates what it does. When we have autonomy, our energy levels are lifted because we're in command. It's so important.
Exactly, Kate. Yeah.
And I think also, sometimes it's that language of doing work that lights you up. I know that when I'm working with people, it absolutely brings me to life. But if I'm spending a lot of time in front of a screen doing documentation and admin and things like that, it really dulls down. So I think it's interesting at a personal level to recognize how we feel. But then if you apply that to an organization, to a team, to a culture, you can see actually understanding those things and the impacts that energy has on people is really important. And it will really allow you to build a culture and an organization that is high performing, but in a way that feels great. Yeah. Colette, would you like to share with us?
Yeah, it's a difficult one for me. I wouldn't say I'm in the spotlight. I would say I'm a bright light bulb. Just going off what Andy said about being reactive. If anybody's worked in a manufacturing environment, it's all reactive work that we do. And like you said, Lisa, sometimes I feel that my light bulb's very dim with the expectation of HR as well. You'd be surprised what is an expectation in terms of HR. We tend to deal with everything. So it's difficult to manage or where to put your energy at times without having a focus. So my opinion, I think since COVID, the energy levels of people have dipped.
Yeah.
I think that's what started it.
Yeah. And I wonder whether some of that is down to less connection with human beings. I don't know, but I think we do see that where people are less connected to each other, whether that's because of hybrid working or just because of the nature of how we work now and the busyness of workplaces, that the connection. Yeah. Thank you. Really appreciate it. I'm not sure whether Miles, I can't see Miles on my screen. Not sure whether Miles wants like to.
Okay, I'm here.
Lovely. Nice to hear you.
I'm from New York.
Great.
What?
Gosh,
New
it's
York City.
early in the morning for you, is it?
Yeah, 6:21.
Wow. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's commitment, Miles. Thank you.
You're welcome. Most of my career, I work in the evening and night shift. I juggle 2 jobs. I'm a nurse in dialysis. So I think I glow morely in the evening. I'm kind of a dim light in the morning.
Yeah.
I've been working for the last year and a half in the morning, and it's not as excited for me.
Yeah. You introduced, Miles, the idea of this, really knowing our circadian rhythms, our sort of bodily preferences, and being connected rather than trying to ignore their reality in our life. So, really glad we've got you, Miles.
Thank you very much, everybody, for sharing. Really, really appreciate that. But I hope that really demonstrates energy. Why understanding energy, or the feel of the energy within yourself, within a team, within an organization, gives us a lot of information. So let's take you back to the school days. Now, I am definitely old enough to remember blackboards. I'm not going to assume that everybody here remembers blackboards, but I certainly do. But let me take you back to that physics lab. And does anybody remember doing that, making a very basic little circuit with a light bulb and getting the light bulb to shine? And then you would add resistance into that circuitry and it would dim the light bulb, or you'd change something and it would brighten the light bulb. And really, all it comes down to is this equation is performance equals energy divided by resistance. So what does that mean in the workplace? Well, basically, if there is a lot of resistance, and that can come in lots of different forms, it's going to have an impact on performance, how bright that energy shines. Now, it might be that the resistance we're talking about is coming from external focuses. So the political landscape, the environmental landscape that we're living in right now, that resistance is going to have an impact on people, on teams, and on a company, depending on what they're focusing on. But there may also be internal resistance within an organization, within a team, that might come from leadership. It might come from the overall culture or management styles of an organization, and that resistance has an impact on performance. Pressures, deadlines, poor communication. I think we would probably all agree poor communication is one of the biggest things that has an impact on performance in an organization. I'm living in Sussex right now, and the water situation with South East Water, luckily we have water, but I have a friend who hasn't had water for 5 days, and the communication coming out of South East Water changes by the hour, and they're blaming it on different things, and this is going to happen then, and it's crazy. And so that leads to stress and anxiety and all sorts of problems. So I hope that makes sense, that when we think about the resistance and the impact that has on performance. But how do we measure human energy? So have a little bit of a think about where you are right now, or where you've worked in your careers. What are the sorts of things that you've done to measure that human energy? So for me, I had a long period of time working in the health and wellness industry, running my own business, working with people to help them get fit, basically. And very often I would hear people say, I'm so tired, I just don't have any energy. Because I haven't got any energy, I don't want to exercise. And it would be a case of trying to understand what's going on for them with this energy. So I would talk to them about their sleep. I would talk to them about how often they rested, how much they worked, what their headaches were like, how much activity. So you had to take some form of measurement to be able to create a plan to get a different result. It's simple. We all know that. But in the workplace, what do you currently do?
And I love
that. Sorts of things.
Miles has given us a subjective self-scoring mechanism, 5 out of 10. So again, we often do some proxies, but I'd love to, again, Miles, maybe you can jump on the mic and sort of explain a little bit more about what you've looked at, what you've experienced to describe that 5 out of 10.
As I said, most of my career I work in the evening and night, and without coffee. So in the morning I have to drink coffee. I'm not a big coffee drinker.
So your accessibility to coffee is your if it's in near reach, your levels can be a bit higher. But
yeah.
Lovely. But you've illustrated something we often use a sort of a proxy sort of sense of, don't we, to try and say, I think my energy's half set at the moment.
Yeah, scoring system. We might use things like pulse surveys, We might use employee satisfaction surveys, or have a regular check-in. So the manager talks to their team, talks to them each individually once a week. How you doing? How you feeling? La la la. And whilst it's a good way to start to create that data, it can be quite subjective. So paint a picture of, a team who has a rather maybe controlling manager, and staff that feel a little bit unsafe because of this manager. If they're asked how they're doing by this person, will they give a true score? Perhaps not. Perhaps, a company-wide survey might come out and people feel, well, I don't really know what to say, so I'll just go middle, everything's okay. So whilst it's a good start, it is quite subjective. Would everybody agree that that is the case with these types of tools?
It feels more intuitive than sort of scientific.
Yeah. And intuition, I really strongly believe in intuition, and I don't think we use it enough personally in our lives. I think we forget to check in with our heart and our gut, but that's definitely for another webinar. But let's just confirm why measuring matters. If we don't know where we're starting and we don't know where we're going to get to, go back to the whole weight loss analogy that I talked about earlier. If somebody says, I want to lose weight, but you haven't actually measured them, you haven't weighed them, and 6 months' time they go, well, I still don't feel very good, you haven't got any data. So measuring is really important to understand where you are right now, and also maybe to confirm what your intuition is telling you, that something's off, something's not quite right. So measuring is really important. But as we've already discussed, some of the tools that we use aren't necessarily going to give us that accurate data. However, this is where we go, ta-da. We at Uplift have found and used this wonderful tool called Heart Styles. Now, I know that some of you are aware of the tool. Kay has obviously gone through this reasonably recently with myself. But Heart Styles is a globally recognized tool. It's been in the marketplace for way over 20 years. And actually, we're going to be running a webinar with the founders of Heart Styles in the next couple of months. So encourage you to come along and listen to them while I'll tell you a bit more about how it came about. But it's a tool I've personally used for about 3.5 years now. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, thank goodness, I finally got something that will help me understand what is going on. And it measures human behavior. It's a way of understanding emotional intelligence, but it's different to the traditional psychometric tools like DISC, Insights, METI, in that it's not labeling. So what I mean by that is, if you're doing a DISC profile, you will be given, these are your colors, and this is you, which gives us an amount of data, but I think sometimes can restrict. This tool of Heart Styles is a compass for life. It's a tool for measuring character and what's going on for us in any given time. So we will move around this compass depending on what happens. Going back to what Kay said about the dimmer switch, even that analogy of the light goes up, the light goes down, is us moving potentially around this compass. So I'm going to go very quickly through the model itself. So you can see on screen that you've got the circle, which is the compass. And at the top and the bottom, you will see two words. At the bottom, you have the word ineffective. And what I want you to remember is that although it's ineffective, it's very normal, common behavior that we have. We will all do it many times throughout our day, our week, our month. But what we're trying to do with this tool is to look at how can we step above the line, which is the midline, to more effective behavior. And if we take that from an energy perspective, when we are behaving below the line, it's very energy expensive. we're using a lot of energy to stay within these behaviors. And hopefully as I go through the webinar, you'll get to understand it in a little bit more detail. It'll make more sense. But when we're above the line, we're in a place of generation. We're generating energy. It's that positive, bright light that almost, it does it on its own. It's like that dynamo, just the momentum is there and it's generating energy. So we have above the line, below the line, effective and ineffective behavior. We can achieve results in both places. But when we achieve results from an ineffective place, there is a cost to us, our teams, our organizations. So we have a right and a left side to the circle as well. So when we are looking over to the left, which is the blue and the green quadrant, it's very much about focusing on us and ourselves. It's a personal, internal focus. This is where our energy is focused for us. And then on the opposite side is when we are focusing on others and also how others are perceiving us. Any questions on that? I know I've run through that very quickly, but just to give you a little sense of how this model works. And I'm now going to walk through each of the quadrants in a bit more detail. One thing I do want to point out, and I know I always say this, Kate sort of picks me up on it, but the midpoint of this model is where vulnerability sits. So if any of you have ever listened to Brené Brown or like Brené Brown's work, that midpoint is what we have to pass through when we're going above the line, and that is our stepping into vulnerability. And when we step into vulnerability, that's when we grow. So if you look at this from an organizational perspective as well, when organizations deal with this type of work, they step into that vulnerability, they will grow and develop as an organization. Let me just double check. So one final thing is that, the 4 different quadrants, we call them the universal principles. And each quadrant, I'm going to go through in a bit more detail, but we have 16 behaviors that we measure. So when you go through the Heart Style survey, you will get a report that will give you a measurement against these behaviors. But that allows us to then get an energy read. So that's where the energy comes into it, is that we look at these behaviors, that behaviors will give us or take away our energy. Any questions, Kate? I can't see the chat box, so.
No questions coming through. The bit I would like to emphasize, as you rightly said, when we want to sort of transition from below the line to above the line, and we pass through that experience of personal vulnerability, that in itself requires a burst of energy. So you really need to sort of get the energy resources to have a burst of energy to experience all the dissonance of vulnerability in order to be able to access the above the line and all the energy benefits there. So sometimes there's a deployment of extra energy to get us away from the sort of gravity pull of being below the line.
Yeah.
But lovely, thank you.
Okay, so let's have a look at some of the above the line behaviors and how we have this growth energy. And I want you to focus on the blue quadrant, which is labeled as humility, but I would also like to add in courage. So if we look at humility and courage, because this is looking at personal growth. And if we think about each of us wanting to grow personally, it takes courage. Say, for example, a new manager that has never given a presentation before and has the opportunity or the challenge to do that. To stand up in front of their team to be seen takes courage. So humility and courage, I think, really important. So let's just look at 2 of the behaviors. So you can see the four behaviors in these quadrants, and let's take achieving. So I want you to think about if you were, or maybe you have, going to run a marathon. It takes effort, it takes energy, it takes discipline, it takes momentum. And, the journey to running a marathon, I've done one myself, is, up and down. It's quite hard. But that sense of achievement when you cross that line at 26.2 miles is incredible. But can you see that the journey to achieving is up and down? But you take pride, you take energy, and you grow personally within that area. So measuring your achievement is growing your energy. When we look at the box on the left-hand side of authenticity, when you show up as yourself, speak your truth, have your voice, and be able to put your hand up if you got it wrong, but also to stand up for what you believe in when maybe others don't, or to have that energy to accept and be happy when you've done something well. This is where authenticity really comes into its own. And if we, if you have a bit of a think about people that you've worked with in the past that are very authentic, I'm sure that you can feel that energy, as opposed to somebody that you've worked with in the past that is very much masking. So they may appear to be the whole picture, the whole package, but something's not quite right because they're not showing up as authentic. So hopefully that makes sense when we're looking at personal growth, humility, and how when we're working and we're behaving in this way, when we have teams that are authentic, they're reliable, and they're achieving, there will be much more energy. Hopefully that makes sense. I can see Andy nodding. That's great. Kate, have you got anything that you would like to add to that?
No, I think that's lovely. And I'm just doing a little time check for us in terms of making sure that we continue on the good pace that we're doing.
Lovely. Okay, so let's just pop over into the focus on growing others, and let's look at the love quadrant. And I also want to add in another word here, which is respect. Love and respect. Even just saying those two words, especially respect. I know personally, I've worked in organizations in the past where there has been a lack of respect. And that is quite a difficult place to be. So when we're offering love and respect to others and they are offering it back to us, you can feel how energy will grow. So let's look at the first behavior in here, which is relating. And I'll paint a picture of a new manager that's come into an organization that they haven't worked there before. And they spend time going around talking to and listening to understand other people. And those people do that back to them. Can you feel the difference of a person that takes the time to do that, as opposed to someone that comes in and that perhaps comes in and goes, right, I've got a job to do, I'm just going to crack on and get on with it, and doesn't take the time to relate and understand those people and how their world, what is their world right now. And then look at encouraging behavior from, I know myself where I've helped people with their public speaking confidence. The joy and energy that I get from seeing them on stage that very first time is incredible. And yet they are also getting that energy. They're borrowing that energy, that self-belief from me as their coach and mentor to be on stage. So encouraging others and encouraging teams, and again, it's, I don't know, I can feel that energy, and I hope that makes sense to you, to show that there's a growth energy feel.
Yeah, I liken it to an energy loan. Somebody might be they're in energy deficit, and you're loaning your energy to them to find their capacity to perform.
Yeah. So let's step below the line, and I know this, I'll paint this picture that, oh, it's all doom and gloom, but this is absolutely normal, common human behavior, and it will make sense. But because we're in a place of fear, so our hypothalamus is highly charged and telling us, oh, we're in fear. So we go into this self-protection, this defense mechanism. We're worried about fear of rejection, fear of judgment, and take approval seeking. New in role, not done this before. It's very likely you're going to ask people, how did I do? Is this good? Did you like what I did? Completely normal, completely understandable. However, if that behavior continues and continues and continues and continues, can you see how it might disconnect you from others? It's hard for you as an individual to seek that approval all the time, takes a lot of energy, but it's also difficult for other people because they think, oh gosh, have I got to say it again? And then if we go into that place of being easily offended when we receive feedback, then you've got teams where people are walking on eggshells around each other. And can you see how a team where you've got people that are seeking approval or who are easily offended, how that disconnection happens, how the waves are parting, how people don't talk to each other anymore because they think, oh God, I don't want to talk to that person because I'll get it wrong. So think about behaviors that come from self-protection and fear and how that impacts energies within teams, within groups, within organizations, and even in yourself.
Like having the brake pedal on, isn't it?
It absolutely is having the brake pedal on. It takes a lot of energy to stay there. And then let's step over into the, personal focus. This is all about me. And when we're working and behaving from an area of pride and ego, and one could argue that pride is a good thing. And I would argue that pride can be a good thing. But this is about, look at me, I'm amazing. It's that type of pride. And it's a defense mechanism, normally coming from a lack of. So when we lack self-esteem, we lack self-belief. And I can completely put my hand up to this. I remember really fearing how people would judge me. I would be a bit OTT. I would almost do too much people pleasing to want people to like me or to prove that I am as good as they. Having not gone to university, and I think I might have shared this with Kay the other day, when I met people that had got that level of academic qualification, I would almost strive to show that I was just as good because I've got experience. So when we use controlling behavior, it takes a lot of energy. Even if you were physically to think about controlling by juggling 100 plates in the air, even the physical way of doing that takes a lot of energy. But when you control your world, everything stays safe. But if you think about where others might go when they're working in a controlling environment, they may well go right over to the right-hand side and avoid. So they won't speak up, they won't offer ideas, they won't be creative because it's very controlling. So I'll just avoid it. I'll just do what I need to do and keep quiet. Or the behavior of sarcasm, where it's that wounding comment, that sharpness. I'm better than you. I'm funnier than you. I'm louder than you. And it can be fairly wounding. And I'm sure many of us have been on the end of a sarcastic comment and felt, oh, okay, I'm just going to be quiet. I'm going to just shrink and not know how to deal with it. So I hope very quickly that you can see the different energy pools between the above the line and below the line behavior.
Yeah,
just do it.
Sorry, so I'm just building on your sort of energy imagery here in terms of when ego is rampant in an individual or a team or even an organization. It's like that magnetic. When you put two magnets together, but they're working against and they're pushing each other apart. You often see that the effect of ego is it emotionally distances others from the person that's generating it. Just like those two magnets don't want to meet, they just push away.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do now is actually share some reports So you'll see on the right hand side, you'll see the diagrams, and it will give you an idea of what the report will look like. So you can see the colours, where they are and what's sitting, and then link that back to energy. So when we're in this energy state, it's very generating. You can see that behaviours are way above the line. There's lots of humility, there's lots of courage, there's lots of love, there's lots of respect. And typically, when we see a report this way, this is an aspiration to be. We, as human beings, tend to know what great behavior looks like, feels like, and obviously what good energy, positive energy feels like. So when we look at this, you are going to typically have high-performing teams, but not high-performing from a really pushing, striving, but high-performing from an achieving. Remember that marathon, you know, they've got over the line. People are thriving. They want to come to work. They wake up in the morning or in the evening, and they want to go to work. They're excited about their work. There's that sustainability. You know, even when the target's really tough, they can sustain their effort because it's almost self-fulfilling, self-perpetuating. Healthy relationships, people are connected, and there's a real high sense of well-being. Now, we know in the world right now, burnout rates are going up and up and up. You know, year on year on year, percentages of burnout are growing. And talking about burnout, not surprisingly, burnout is going to happen, energy, when we're behaving very much below the line. So this would be a report of somebody that is, really in fear, really in defense, really in lack of, and performance is lower. Now, you still can achieve results from this area, as I've already said, but it's at what cost? And it's normally mental, physical, emotional, spiritual burnout. People are disconnected. It's that magnet that Kate was talking about. You know, they're opposing, I can't think of the poles, isn't it? Opposing poles. So they're going the wrong way. You've got burnout, you've got exhaustion, you've got high conflict, arguments, teams not getting on, people not talking to each other, snidey comments, and potentially that poor well-being. But there's also, I'll just check, have I got the right slide on? No,
I think you jump back one.
Jump one tonight, yeah. But there's also this that happens. Now, this is a read where it's very much sitting in the middle. It's like average, isn't it? This is what we would call stasis. Things are sitting in the comfort zone. It's not that an organization or an individual isn't doing well. They're doing okay. They're fine. But it's not, people are surviving. You know, they'll go to work, they'll do their job, they'll get paid. They're sitting in their comfort zone, so they won't maybe push themselves to try new things or to expand their knowledge or to grow. It's very transactional relationships. So the lights are dimmed, you know, it's sort of everything's working at maybe 80%. So it's tracking along, it's chugging along, but does this help you beat your competition? Does that help you as an individual feel like you're growing, or do you feel like you're just static? Does this pay shareholders? Probably, but does it give them the best results that they want? Maybe not. And we're seeing this sort of read more and more. But more worryingly, and this is why we called the webinar the Human Energy Crisis, I don't think we're really actually in the crisis yet, but we're getting close to it. And we're getting to this point where people bail out. So they're still coming to work. They're still doing what they need to do, but performance is invisible. People are present whilst being absent. I don't know whether anyone sitting in the room right now can recognize that. Now, typically, we would see this type of survey result from somebody who is coming close to retirement. And interestingly, I worked with somebody recently who is about to leave the company and set up their own own company, and they are, they're hanging on in there, but actually they've disconnected. So there's just enough energy. But what can happen in this situation is sarcasm can come in. That snidey, so almost sort of keeping people at bay by just being enough to send them away. Not conflict, so there's not a lot of conflict going on, but we're in a place of bailout. Do those four energy states resonate with you? Hearing those examples, do they resonate with you right now?
Absolutely.
Feel free to unmute if you want to.
Yeah, I'm just again adding from this area of work about the nature of this bailout, because when you're in burnout, it's quite apparent and visible. The bailout nearly goes underneath the radar, so it's harder to notice. It doesn't draw attention, and yet it's someone who's not bringing their best selves to work, or giving their best selves to the scenario, but it seems to hide, which makes it quite a difficult one to get sight of. Okay, thanks, Andy. I can see your hands up.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, this one was making me smile because I sort of decided to retire and then worked for another year to sort of to wind down effectively. So I think I went through some of this, and I think you do become. Hopefully, I didn't become any more sarcastic than I already was. But I think I did try to avoid that behaviour. But definitely non-conflict, sort of invisible performance, absent while present. You are on a kind of go into a bit of a autopilot mode in this kind of situation. So I do recognise some of that. Yeah.
Lovely.
Thank you for sharing authentically, Andy. And it's interesting, isn't it? We all know it's a very British thing to be sarcastic and use humour. It is a very British thing. But using the behaviours of authenticity, if you know that's where you go, but you let people know that's who you are and how, then you build better relationships. When you hide it, it's harder. So the energy management system that we've got here, Heart Styles, it can be used on an individual basis. And I know Kay has experienced that recently, but we can also do it as a team. So if things aren't working in a particular team, we can run this as a team event, so you can get individual feeds, but then bring it together to see what's happening within the team, or as an overall organization. So to get that overall cultural feel of an organization, what is happening and where is the energy? But what we're seeing, interestingly, is that on an individual basis, we might get real bright lights shining away, but when they come together, they're coming almost to that stasis of they're dimming down to stay, safe in that place. But actually what you really want as an organization is those bright lights to shine even brighter. So this is the work that we like to come in and do, is how can we turn up that dimmer so that it's shining brightly, but from a place of pleasure, positivity, kindness, authenticity, and all those above the line behaviors. So how do we do that? And the starting point is we need to measure where we are right now and be honest, and to decide, right, what are we going to do next, and take action. So this is about becoming accountable. So how do we do it? So we've got the measurements. We recognize that, okay, there's quite a lot of fear going on here. There's quite a lot of ego in the room, in the person, or in the organization. So what do? We've got those metrics, and courage is the thing. And we talked about courage. So it's those diagonal movements within the model, but courage diminishes fear. But as Kate said at the beginning, is, you know, there might need a little bit of energy required to get you to step above the line. So have a bit of a think about, you know, your career, your organization. Maybe what do you do already, or what do you think you could do to create this courage? I'm going to just gently talk around some of the things that we've done as Uplift Consulting within organizations to help grow this courage to step above the line. One of the things that is really helpful, and we've had some really good results, is looking at purpose. So running purpose workshops and reconnecting leaders and senior managers and, you know, board members with why do they do what they do, and really getting them to step into their why, their purpose of what they do, and then to share that. So things like storytelling and helping creating those team events where people are safe to share, team building and connection events. Our colleague Dave does a lot of work with Lego Serious Play, which is a fantastic tool to bring teams together, to talk about strategies, to use the sort of a limbic part of our brains. So it's fun, it's playful, and connect people together. We would run workshops on building trust, looking at growth mindset, looking at emotion and intelligence, and running development programs. So I don't know whether there were any more ideas shared in the boxes, Kate, or if anybody wants to
jump on the mic. I mean,
jump on the mic.
one I would add, because you're right, you say we typically try and grow the courage to diminish fear because there's so much more energy generation there. Sometimes, though, we might do work which is direct fear work. We have sort of some psychological therapeutic training now within the team, and sometimes, particularly for an individual, they might want to work through their personal sources of fear that often come from early life, for example, and that can be very, very powerful, just because that might need a very direct sort of therapeutic coaching intervention to help the fear be processed rather than be ignored. So I just would add that too. Miles is just mentioning that he may have to leave. He's off to get that coffee, aren't you, Miles? He needs to get the day kicked off. So we'll hopefully link up with you, Miles, if that's okay. So
yeah, and we'll send out the recording too, Miles, so that anything that you miss, you can catch up with at another time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Really appreciate you getting up very early to come and listen to us.
Yeah, so Andy's got his hand up, so I'll let Andy speak, and then Colette's got a comment in the chat room.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, I was just reflecting on, I think, you know, fear can often arise when you have a very high level of attachment to outcomes that you want to see happen. And you're then trying to avoid other outcomes. And that's very difficult in the current environment, I think, because so much of what's happening in business and in the world generally is kind of out of your control.
You agree?
So I think in that kind of situation, it can be helpful. And what I actually love about Heart Styles is to shift the focus more towards your inputs and your behaviors with those inputs.
It's so spot
take
on.
Pride and courage in the way you do your job more than the outcome that it generates necessarily. I think that's a difficult shift in a lot of organizations because we're so focused on, you know, outcomes for shareholders and so on. But I think just mentally just trying to shift a little bit can be helpful because it puts you more in control of the things you can control, kind of thing. More focused on the things you can control.
That word attachment is such a powerful psychological term. To attach is to say my sense of self and the worth I place on myself is linked to the outcomes I can generate in the workplace. And you can see how fragile that is, because even with the best generated effort, sometimes there are circumstances that we can't navigate. And if we learn to attach ourselves, if we can use the word, or connect the sense of self to how we choose to live, i.e. the values we live by, it typically generates outcome. So it's great, it's doing the job there, but it keeps us psychologically more resilient to when things derail, because we can say, I have lived and been and practiced in the way I choose to practice, and that can't be denied me. And that's where we become so strong. I love that, Anne. Love that.
Yeah, thanks.
So I'm going to add, Colette said, we have an open employee forum each quarter for the representatives of each team to raise any concerns, make suggestions generally how we can make the workplace a better place to be. So there's that real sort of invitation for team connection. Love that.
Yeah. And I think those types of things are really good, especially when they, the comments and things that people that talk about are then shared, or the results of that idea. So people know that it's going to be listened to, it's being listened to. Yeah, I didn't explain that very well, but I think you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at the other diagonal. Is obviously from an ego perspective, where somebody is lacking. So ego has come in because they want to prove. Love can help reduce that need for the ego to come in. So those relating, understanding, encouraging, developing people. So thinking about the types of things that you might do to help reduce ego and improve that respect and love. Nancy Klein's thinking environment, if anybody's ever done any work around that type, where everybody gets a voice, they have their moment and you are not interrupted. So we work with things like that, looking at blame culture, understanding blame and the impacts of blame, talking about trust, change management from a human perspective. What's happening with humans when they go through, and coaching and mentoring obviously is a fantastic way to really help with somebody that is lacking in that self-esteem. Having that coach, that mentor to hold their hand and help them at all levels of the organization is absolutely great. And even things like bringing in gratitude, the survey that or the opportunity for people to share their ideas, as Colette was talking about, and making sure that that is being seen and people are thanked for their ideas. So just a thank you can make a huge difference to people. Acts of service. I know Kate shared with us on our last webinar where we talked about this subject, is that when she was doing her counselling course, it was pretty intensive. And one of the meetings, the trainer teacher said, guys, just take this afternoon off. And that act of kindness was huge, made such a difference. So something as simple as that, or buying your team lunch, when it's done from a place of love and respect, can have all the difference. So I don't know if anybody wants to share any other ideas that they may have, that the types of things that can help.
Well, I'll build on those acts of altruism and service that you talked about, that whilst they can be within team, well, often when we bring them into community, that can be so team building. To do something that's socially beneficial can be very energizing and very connecting for team. And I've certainly seen that with a number of my clients when they've done litter picking or some kind of work that they know beyond self is beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I know that we're coming close to time, so I'm going to run through these two slides just quickly, but we wanted to show, some real results. So this is a result that's shared from an anonymous person. I'm obviously not going to give you their name or where they worked, but let's say they were sort of new into a management role, mid-career, so in their mid-30s, but you can see from the results here, very much sitting in fear. Very much about self-protection and worry. And they took us up on the opportunity to do a one-to-one coaching session. I know that Kay has experienced this. It was literally one conversation. And the result of that conversation gave them so much insight into things that had happened in their private and personal life, things that had happened in the past, but also what was going on for them in the workplace and how they were responding to situations in the workplace without necessarily realizing that's what they were doing. And 3 months later, we got an email, a thank you email, completely out of the blue from this person saying that one conversation changed my life. It's made a difference in my, my family life, but it's also made a difference in how I respond at work. And I've now got further promotion. My team are really happy, and I feel really confident and great as to who I am. That's why we do this work. Actually, really, is seeing those changes energizes us and gives us that sense of purpose. So to have that, just to thank you, is lovely. And then this is an example of an organisation. So an organisation that we worked with for a long period of time, and I think we worked with over 200 people. So this is I can't think of the word. I want to say acclimatation, but I know that's
consolidation. It was we combined them all.
Bringing them together. And it's really nice. You can see that there is a lot of effort going on above the line, but almost a little bit of stasis, comfort zone here, because we're staying very much within the grey area. So not the white areas within the graph are the growth area. But the organisation themselves the nature of their work was quite fear-inducing, and so they were used to fear, so they didn't feel that they needed in their behaviours to protect. But when we do have fear, it adds in a bit of a filter, and when we have a lack of fear, that it removes that filter, and I'll just say what I like and what I want. And you can see that sarcasm and ego is really quite high. So the environment was very much ego driven and very much a conflict, maybe a blame culture, and a bit of a lack of trust. So this gives that organisation an opportunity to really look at, where do they need to go with this? What is the impact of this energy on performance and results? So it gives you a really good feel and a sense of what is going on. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'll just add another little commentary on that particular last one, which was that ego felt that it was connected. There was a lot of neurodiversity within that community, and they shared a lot of difficulty when they had their academic experience. There was a lot of devaluing of them, i.e., because they found learning more difficult than the conventional way of learning, and that seemed to travel into their adult careers. That school said to me, I didn't know how to learn, and therefore the ego was their very elevated response when they took their professional lives forward as a collective group. So that it was interesting that neurodiversity grouping played a part in this.
Yeah, lovely. So I hope that has been interesting, insightful, useful, made you, start to think about what you might want to do for yourself personally, what you might want to do within your organizations, within your careers, within companies that you work with in the future. Any questions? This is where it all goes quiet.
No. Andy's got a question.
And Kay afterwards.
Okay.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, probably just more of an observation really than a question. But I mean, as you know, I've worked with Kate in the past and working with this framework in one of the businesses we worked in for a long time. And I suppose it's sort of how do you deal with people like who, to be honest, like me, initially I was quite resistant to this. I thought, we're all wonderful human beings. We can't be turned into 16 bars on a chart. We're more complex than that. And over time, I became a really big convert to this framework and the benefits that it provides. If you are trying to use this in an organization and you're seeing, initial resistance, perhaps from, some decision makers in the business who are important, how would you go about trying to address that and trying to overcome that hurdle?
Yeah, for me, you framed sort of two parts to that question. One is, and again, sort of Lisa will connect with this, is relating to the individual resistance that may be present. And for there, it's you absolutely meet the person where they are and you hold them up. I remember a particular program I ran that wasn't where the company that we shared, where somebody came in the session, their arms were crossed, they were angry as, and they were literally, when we did the round the room introduction, it was like, I'm a hostage. And probably their transformation, even over a 2-day program, was the most significant, because it's to know and trust the process that sometimes the strength of the resistance might be a reveal of the depth of the opportunity for that person. And you but it's a choice. It's a choice, and you gift people the freedom to say, if you want to engage, you can. If you don't, that's okay too. And therefore they don't feel the demand, the control on them. So there's something about the individual treatment to respect where someone is. But having done this with quite a few cycles now, I think I always get quite excited about the potential. So it's I'm there. I'm going to be with that person as long as they want to be with it in terms of their own experience. Organisation, it can be tougher. We have, again, in our experiences, got embroiled in political agendas, etc., and that can be what it is. There can be political aspects that are going on for the organisation, and you look to be as true to it. And again, sometimes it takes some patience. The organisation might not be ready one year, but next year it is. So again, I think there's something about you don't need to impose it. You just offer it as a choice.
Makes sense. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Andy. Kay.
It wasn't actually a question, but I thought the ideas that you gave around potential workshops and topics for workshops, I thought was really interesting, because I was kind of thinking, like, how can I make this applicable for the workplace? What kind of headings would I be looking at? So I really liked that. I particularly like the idea of the purpose workshop.
They're very, very powerful. And I've worked with quite senior people, and they are a bit defensive, and I know my purpose, I know my why, I know. And then when you do that work, it's the light bulb going off, actually. It's the light bulb switching on, and that sort of takes them back into what really is that purpose. It's very powerful.
Yeah, and purpose is very different from missions and visions and values, which are the conventional suite of things that organizations capture, and they have their place. But purpose is really saying, what is it, what difference is it that you want to make, and how can we connect your inner heart to that? So it's a far more energizing, vulnerable, personal, but powerful when we can. And typically, if it can connect beyond self, again, if it has social responsibility, it adds another dimension.
Yeah.
Love that.
Absolutely. Colette, do you have any questions?
No, nothing from me.
Oh, lovely. Well, I think in that final minute, what we want to do, and I know a number of you are on the call, but Miles, you'll hear this on the recording. We want to make sure that those of you that spent the time to listen, to reflect, to connect, that there's a couple of things we want to make available to you, because we know to experience this, to know the impact of this work. And so the online coaching experience is one that I know Kay has just gone through, in terms of getting a report and having some coaching time is in the mix that we want to make available. Colette, think about that, and I know Andy would share that with you as you determine organisations you want to support going forward. So that's kind of one offer we want to make, and these are free. We want the tasters to open up the opportunity for people to understand the impact of this work. And we can also do a team diagnostic. It's not a full suite of reports on everyone, but it's a high level diagnostic insight to get a sense of what's going on for a team, to introduce it. And so we invite you either to put into the chat room, or to email us off this call in terms of your interests. For those that want to do this, we would love to have that opportunity with you.
Just talking about from my experience, I found the one-to-one coaching with Lisa absolutely awesome. The feedback I got from the report was really interesting. So I'm really new to the business. I've only been here 13 weeks. So it was great to find out how I'm being perceived by my colleagues, but then also having that safe space to actually talk through the report with Lisa. And I'm going to go away and actually come up with some actions on what to do. So Lisa advised having a little pause to really reflect on the report before making any decisions, but been so helpful. So thank you so much, Lisa.
Oh, you're welcome, Kay. And I'm really pleased that it's had an impact. Yeah.
And
That's
Colette, we can certainly do the same with you. And you even get the choice of Dave if you want to. We can bring him to continue it. But we'd love you to, as you've taken the time to have that opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
So I think it leaves me, we are 2 minutes over. But it just leaves me to say a huge thank you for your engagement, your comments, your insights, your authenticity. I very much hope that we can, have some continued conversations with all of you. And Kay, did you put your hand up again, or was that
User error, sorry.
That's